So, final question to you, Dr. Tharoor. Do you feel India has been firm enough in its response to the constant mediation claimed by the US president? It's a question that your own party continues to ask back home. Just yesterday, the leader of your party, Rahul Gandhi, said Modi surrendered to President Trump. Modi surrendered to President Trump.
Sorry, what was the last one there?
That Modi surrendered to President Trump. So a lot of people that I talk to who don't know much about India and Pakistan, but they do know that both are nuclear armed. There's fear in a lot of people that, India and Pakistan tensions flare up regularly. They're both armed nuclear nations. So how seriously is the threat of nuclear engagement being taken, and what steps are being pursued to ensure such a scenario is avoided?
Okay, first of all, as I say, don't talk about tensions between India and Pakistan. Frankly, we have no tensions with Pakistan unless and until they start acting against us like this. We are very happy to leave them alone. And we have no grudge against them. Let them develop their own country or not develop their own country, or let the army ruin their country. That's entirely up to them. It's not our problem. So we are not creating any, there's nothing we're demanding out of Pakistan right now, except that they dismantle their terror infrastructure, right? So please don't, there's a big flaw in some of these assumptions that there is equivalence between India and Pakistan as if they're two sides of a chain. The fact is that there can be no equivalence between terrorists and their victims. There can be no equivalence between a country that's needling another country and sending terrorists across to bleed it with a death by 1,000 cuts, in the famous phrase of a Pakistani general, and those who are trying to defend their own territory, their own sovereignty, their own people. There is no equivalence. So as far as we're concerned, please don't think of it in those terms at all. But since you've asked, the bottom line is we, in all our actions, have acted so responsibly that we are a long way shy of anything remotely approaching a nuclear threshold. When I say that our first strikes were only at terror bases, we did not even hit any Pakistani military installations until they started sending missiles and drones our way. That's when we responded. Till then, we didn't. So we are not doing, and look, you've seen a Russia-Ukraine war. One of the countries has a nuclear weapon. They've been fighting for 2.5 years. There's been far more devastation and destruction taking place, and yet there has been no resort to nuclear threats or nuclear weapons or whatever. I think that India-Pakistan is way, way, way short of that. We're talking in this case about an 88-hour conflict. We didn't even engage any ground troops. I don't think either country was able to penetrate the airspace of the other. It was drones, missiles, artillery shells, this sort of stuff. And it was a battle in some ways also between defense systems, in which I'm pleased to say we seem to have come out of it rather better, because there are no reports of any extensive damage in India, whereas lots and lots of downed drones and downed missiles have been found on the ground. None of them have done any major damage. So if you want to compare defense systems, that's maybe the more interesting comparison, not nuclear systems.
Could you elaborate on the nature of recent conversations between India and China in the context of maintaining regional peace and security?
Well, recently, I would not say there have been any significant conversations. There was a significant thaw in the tense relationship between our countries, starting with September of 2024, when our foreign minister met his counterpart, our national security advisor met his counterpart, the generals on both sides talked to each other, and there was a certain agreement reached to ease some of the tensions on the border that had begun when China killed 20 of our soldiers on the border in June 2020. Now, that process of thawing had begun barely 7 months ago, when this particular unpleasant terrorist incident and subsequently the conflict with Pakistan, even for a few days, erupted, during which time China was unconditionally supporting its all-weather friend, Pakistan, including in the Security Council on things like the statement one of my colleagues has mentioned. So I don't think that we've had much cause to talk to them very recently. But the earlier process of thawing reflected a strategic choice on the part of both countries to dial down tensions and cooperate. And I think they will now have to see whether in the wake of what has happened, one can just go back to business as usual, or whether further discussion and dialogue is required. I think this is a process which at the moment is beyond the remit of my colleagues on this delegation and me. But I can say that there was a process that was very positive along the lines that your question asks, but it didn't frankly get revived after the 22nd of April.
Ambassador Sandhu, in the context of the Quad, do you believe India's participation has translated into strategic support during security crises, or does it remain largely a maritime and economic framework?
See, the Quad has been a developing story. You know from where it came and how it has moved. It's a much wider partnership. I think during the COVID period we saw, and that process is moving ahead. From what I have read, the next foreign ministers meeting is going to take place in Washington soon. And there are a number of clear projects, especially in technology and many other areas, healthcare, that Quad is undertaking. So I presume that will continue further. And that process, which began years ago, but actually intensified during President Trump's first term, further deepened during President Biden's term. So I'm sure the second term of President Trump will see its maturity further.
Again, related to Operation Sindoor, but related to press freedom. In the case of Operation Sindoor, a 19-year-old student who wrote a social media post was first suspended and then arrested, even though she removed her post and apologized, prompting the High Court in Bombay to describe her detainment as absolutely shocking, according to the Hindustan Times. What does that tell us about the state of free speech in India today?
Who are you asking this question to?
Mr. Deora, would you like to?
Well, I don't know if we have a system that the courts work, and unlike other countries, if a state government has engaged in a wrongful arrest, somebody can take recourse from the courts. So, I mean, look, we are the largest democracy. We are the most diverse democracy. And we are a federal structure where our judiciary works. So I think that we've got everything going for us. And if you compare what the scenario looks like around the neighborhood, we are really truly the most vibrant democracy.
So, Dr. Tharoor, why is it so tough to sell India as a victim of terror to the West? For most Westerners, it's a basic understanding that their government will stand against terrorism. So what's the missing link here? The fact that India had to send 7 delegations after the operation says a lot about how India has failed on building consensus on a topic like terrorism.
That's an interesting way of seeing it, because our experience in our meetings has not implied any lack of credibility or any non-receptivity to our message at all. So had your question been well grounded, we would have probably had some pushback or some skepticism or some negativism even, but we didn't. And we're talking about fairly wide range of countries. I mean, I realize that Guyana is not the United States, and that Panama or Colombia or Brazil all have independent characters. But in every country, we've encountered government officials, legislators, think tankers, and media, and of course, members of the general public. And I can't think of a single example, can you, where we had any skepticism or any difficulty selling the message. Some of the details we were giving them opened their eyes. But some of the, not one person said, we don't really believe this, or we think you're spinning a yarn or whatever. This is why Pakistan is now following in our wake to say we are also victims of terrorism. But if I can quote a former American Secretary of State who famously said, well, you can't breed vipers in your backyard and expect it to bite only your neighbors. That's what the Pakistanis did, sadly. And the result now is that they are being bitten too. I mean, we all know that, for example, the Taliban movement, and in fact, by and large, all these terror organizations were created by the Pakistani military and ISI and so on for specific target purposes. There were some units created to hit India. There were some that were created to take over Afghanistan. They wanted to do damage on both sides, on both of their borders. And ironically, one group is now broken up and started hitting Pakistan. The so-called Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan is an offshoot of a terror movement initially incubated by Pakistan that's turned against its masters, just as Dr. Frankenstein discovered. You build a monster, you can't control it. That's what's happened to Pakistan.
This morning, in fact, our meetings on the Hill, in private and in public, congressmen and senators were very clear in supporting our stand. And so as I said, the point of credibility, forget about the point of credibility, the point of you did the right thing, you have every right to defend yourself, as do we. So that's all we've encountered in these 5 countries.
The two consistent themes that have come out in all of our meetings, and yesterday I was talking to a couple of MPs who were part of the other delegations, including in Islamic countries. Two consistent themes. One, they're unequivocally in support of India and India's position against zero tolerance for terrorism and our counter-terrorism measures. Second, every single country that we spoke to is extremely enthusiastic about engaging with India in multiple other aspects. What can they engage with Pakistan? They want to do trade with India. They want to do technology with India. Countries like Guyana said, we are an extraordinary friend of India. Indian companies need to show more initiative to come here and help us out. Panama, we still remember, even while we were exiting the office of the president of Panama, he said, when will you be bringing the IIT to Panama? The same thing was with Brazil, from agro-technology to yoga, Ayurveda, harnessing India's digital stack. Every country is keen to do business with India, to talk trade with India, to talk future with India, because we bring a multi-dimensional value addition to the world.
So, Ambassador Sandhu, and to all of you, basically, we always get, voices of support, like, whenever something terrible happens in India. But it doesn't go much beyond that. I mean, the Mumbai attacks, the killers still roam free. Although when Prime Minister Modi was here in the joint statement, India and US always say that, we need justice for the Mumbai attacks, in which 6 US citizens also died. Again, when Prime Minister Modi was here earlier this year, there was a joint statement. But it doesn't translate into any real pressure on Pakistan. There's no movement.
So I think what you are alluding to is something which should make everybody in the United States stand up. That terrorism, which is hitting everyone, including the United States. And look at the thread of most of the terrorist activities from here. Right from the shooting outside the CIA in the late 90s to now. Some thread comes from Pakistan. And you were talking about the trade. What is the biggest export which Pakistan has today? Terrorism? Is that the focus they are going to go towards? So it's time that United States and other countries, when the leadership comes here, and that's why I mentioned Mr. Bhutto should be looking very seriously at curbing terrorism in Pakistan, if he can. If the Field Marshal allows him, or maybe tomorrow Super Field Marshal. Look, what is very important, you also asked another question, that were we sending a message to China? No, we were sending a message to the terrorists, to terrorism as a policy. But what is the message coming out from there, from China? Does the United States need to take a look at that? There is a China-Pakistan axis. So I think these are some of the issues certainly that should take. And I also pointed out to you, look at the relationship, look at the depth of United States-India relationship. Look at the partnership which stretches across. And same is the issue, as my colleague just mentioned, all the 4 countries we went to, each one asked for an IIT to be established there. That's towards which you need to urge Mr. Bhutto to take his country towards, since his father is the president of the country.
Just to add to what Ambassador said, in 1996, India proposed the CCIT, the Comprehensive Convention on International Terrorism in the United Nations. We were the country that sponsored this idea. But unfortunately, even till today, there hasn't been a consensus around that to define in international terms what terrorism means and to come up with an international framework to go after those who sponsor it, fund it, and curb terrorism. I think that's a very important direction towards all countries coming together. While we were in Brazil, we learned that India and Brazil is working towards a bilateral agreement on combating terror, which is, I think, a very encouraging important step for both of these countries. I have this 3-4 page list that mentions a list of major terrorist attacks affecting the United States and with connection with Pakistan. More than 32 incidents mentioned here. So the world needs to take note that the terror that is emanating from Pakistan is not just a threat to the immediate geography, but is a threat to the whole world.
Right. Well, I mean, you mentioned that all the visits that you've had, everybody supports India against terror. Everybody wants to cooperate with India in different sectors. But do you see there being a growing consensus that Pakistan is a terrorist state, something that President Bill Clinton contemplated announcing during Kargil?
Look, I mean, I think the Pakistan situation is such a mess that I would not want to venture a simple answer. I think that we have a peculiar situation where there is a nominally elected civilian government, but the reins are held by the military, where the most popular politician is in jail and has been for a couple of years and continues to attract mass adulation while still in jail. There are all sorts of things going on there, and the Pakistanis go around saying, we're helpless, we ourselves are victims of terrorism, because indeed you have the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan that's attacking the army and the civilian government installations and so on. So the country is frankly in a mess. To call it a terrorist state would be to imply that all of them are complicit. I think half the time one organ of Pakistan doesn't know what the other organ is doing. And there's a lot of this kind of confusion, which also makes it very difficult to talk to them. I will say that if the Pakistan government wants to be taken seriously as a responsible state, then the task for it is very clear. Dismantle the existing infrastructure of terror. Shut down every one of these terror training camps. Ban each of these organizations. Close their bank accounts. Arrest their leaders. There are 52 names in the list of the United Nations Terrorism Committee. Arrest all 52 of them. Put them in bars. Prosecute them seriously and not in the frivolous fashion we've seen after the Mumbai attacks. I mean, there are things that Pakistan can do in order to actually be respected for this kind of thing, but it won't do them. It's not doing them. And this is our biggest problem, Poonam. We would much rather not waste time on this issue, to be honest. We all have better things to do in India. But as long as Pakistan continues to incubate this kind of terror, these units, these terrorist groups that come and do this kind of colossal damage and cost lives in our country, then we'll have to respond exactly as we've done before, as we've done from the 7th to the 10th of May. And Pakistan should realize there will be a price to pay for terror. They cannot just walk across the border and kill our people and get away with impunity.
All right, before I ask the final question, I'm just going to take a moment to thank the Headliners team leader, Jen Judson, Headliners team members, Sehun Kim, who's sitting right here, and Club Executive Director DDA Saji and the entire club staff, Cecily, Madison, I don't know if you're here, for making this possible. And I'm going to ask Rohit and Sehun to come join me. Can you come up? Yes. So to present to our speakers today, the coveted.
Thank you. Well, I'm a tea drinker, so I'm very happy to have a mug. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
National Press Club mug.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very nice water bottles and
Yes,
Yeah.
the water bottles too.
Thank you.
All right.
thank you so much.
And for our final question,
Oh, final
Oh, I
question.
thought this was your final answer.
we do this before the final
Made in
question.
the USA.
Yes.
Oh, Mr. Trump would be very happy with that, I'm sure. Yeah.
Okay. So, final question to you, Dr. Tharoor. Do you feel India has been firm enough in its response to the constant mediation claimed by the US president? It's a question that your own party continues to ask back home. Just yesterday, the leader of your party, Rahul Gandhi, said Modi surrendered to President Trump.
Sorry, what was the last one there?
That Modi surrendered to President Trump.
Look, all I can say is that we have enormous respect for the American presidency and the American president. All we can say for ourselves is that we have never particularly wanted to ask anyone to mediate. As I said, we have no real difficulty in speaking the same language as the Pakistanis. As long as they use the language of terrorism, we will use the language of force, and that doesn't require a third party. If, on the other hand, they were to dismantle the infrastructure of terrorism, we can talk to them. If they take serious actions to show that they want to restore normal relationships with us, we can certainly talk to them again without needing an intermediary. So it's not in any way a negative comment about the goodwill of people. During this conflict, as I said, in any case, India didn't need persuading to stop. No one needed to tell us stop because we were telling them. The moment Pakistan stops, we are prepared to stop. So if they in turn then told the Pakistanis, you better stop because the Indians are willing to stop, and that was what they did, then that's wonderful gesture on their part vis-a-vis Pakistan, but only Pakistan and they can tell us exactly what happened. With us, all we can say is that we know in our conversations some of these things didn't come up. But I want to say this in a very constructive spirit. We have an enormous respect for the US, and we have a much more important, valuable strategic partnership with Washington that we wouldn't want to jeopardize over a matter of detail. We are interested, we're talking at the moment about a number of areas of cooperation. We're interested in enhancing all of that. So small matters can go by and we can focus on tomorrow.
As far as the political question is concerned, I would just like to express my admiration for Dr. Tharoor, who I've known for a long time. He always puts country before party.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you all for joining us today, Dr. Tharoor, Mr. Deora, Mr. Surya, and Ambassador Sandhu. So wonderful to see you in Washington again. We know you all have a very busy schedule while you were in town, and I have another meeting directly after this. So I'm going to ask that everybody please remain seated while our guests leave.